This is McCook's Mr. Bill. It's an honor to have you here. This last year we had 850,000 people attacked by terrorists. I said terrorists. No, they didn't ride camels, but rather it's our own man's best friend, a dog. Now you might say that a dog isn't really a terrorist, but you ask a victim to tell you about the attack and you'll hear terrorism in their voice. Absolutely, total fear. And it not only scars them physically from the attack, but mentally. Now I know there's jokes about mailmen getting bit. 6,000 mail carriers get bit every year. But it's no laughing matter, and just a drop in the bucket. And as far as attacks go, of those 850,000, you do understand that 27,000, mostly children, will need reconstructive surgery because of those dog bites yearly. And the cost, well, it runs well over $1 billion a year that somebody's got to pay for. Somebody's got to pay for. And for sure it isn't going to be the dog owner. Why? Well, 81% of the dog bites come from owners who are working poor or who are on welfare. In other words, you ain't going to get much money out of them. And so the rest of us, through our own insurance companies, have to flip the bill. And is that fair for the people who don't own a dog to have to pay for those who do? What are some other options and answers? Well, there are two breeds out there, the Pit Bull and the Rottweiler, that account for 41% of the dog attacks in this nation. Now, many cities have already banned those breeds, and perhaps more will, and perhaps even the nation will down the road, unless they get a handle on it. And what would be some of the other options besides a total ban? So short of getting rid of the dogs, what are some options? Well, number one is training. Now, I come from the farm and around dogs all my life, but I noticed in the paper an ad about dog training, and so me and my dog at the time went about 25 years ago, and I learned a lot more than the dog did. 2-hour session for 5 days, 10 hours total time period, and for a $50 bill. There were 16 of us there with our dogs. And it was a blessing. I said a blessing. And it opened my eyes to a lot of things I just didn't know. And well worth it for anyone to take such a course. In fact, I think it should be regulated, just as you cannot drive without training. You can't have a hunter's permit without getting the hunter permit and going through that type of schooling. I think a dog permit would be the same thing. Absolutely. It should be required. But at the same time, I have people telling me that they think because many of the attacks are from people who are poor or working poor, getting food stamps at the least, and since we are feeding them, they can't feed themselves, then maybe it's time for them not to feed a dog. If they can't even feed themselves, then why should we feed them so that they can feed a dog, is what many people tell me. Quite often they have more than one dog, some of them as many as 5. That's insane. If you can't feed yourself and you've got 5 dogs, and you're using whatever welfare money that you have to feed the dogs, and we then have to turn around and buy your food for you. Something's wrong with that picture. Absolutely. I see the point on that too. With that in mind though, dog training and perhaps elimination of numbers. And if someone does have trouble with dogs, and the neighborhood sees it, before something tragic happens, I believe the law enforcement should step in. Absolutely. And try to cut down on the 850,000 terrorist attacks in the United States every year. Rate this film.